you can almost see the South Shore Cultural Center, where we had our wedding reception, and where we had the memorial for Michelle's mom just a while back.
That's how much this community means to us. I mean, every inch of our lives together, and my life, period, happened in these...
Sort of a 5-mile radius of this place.
Yeah.
We have been together now for 34 going on 35 years. I knew almost immediately, and looks like I made a pretty good bet, this was a one-of-a-kind woman with the integrity and character and smarts and values that was going to make me better. And just being with her made me better. And she still does, and would make our kids have a foundation that would pay off for them over the long term. And that's, in fact, what's happened. I don't know if it's been an equal partnership. I've gotten, I'm sure, more out of it than she has. But it's worked out for me really well. For her, it's probably more of a mixed bag.
No.
Yeah, it's been all upside on my end.
We are each other's counterbalance. I mean, the truth is that I probably would have been someone who stayed more put, right? Because I think I grew up with such a grounding here, that sometimes when you're so grounded, you're sometimes afraid to leave that security and comfort. And I might have fallen into that, right? I think I would have had a beautiful life here, but I think it would have been smaller. I think I wouldn't have had the kind of impact. I think our girls, they would have thrived, but, because of my husband, because of who he is, he offered all of us, my mom, my family, just a broader sense of what's possible in life.
What she's saying is I'm the crazy one.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that you provide the forward push that sometimes some of us don't have.
And she
I
grounds
think
me.
I think
And anchors me.
it's been good for me to be a little shaken a bit, to be pushed to do more than what I thought I could do. And some of my first uncomfortable steps in my career, leaving a corporate law firm, was because I met him. I was like, this guy, you're a community organizer? I was like, what's that? Never heard of that. He's organizing in my city, So he made me think more broadly about what I could do with this Harvard law degree besides be a lawyer. And there was just so much. He gave me the courage. He was my ballast. He was like, I got you. And however hard it's been, the ups and the downs, he's got me, He's like, try new things, go leap. Sometimes the stuff I do, he's like, look at you. But I can do a lot of these things because I know if I slip or fall or trip, he's got me. So yes, it has been.
It's just worked out all right.
Partnership. It's been okay.
It's been all right. There used to be a road, really a highway, that ran right through this park. I hadn't been to Chicago except for once when I was like 10 or 11, so I didn't have a lot of memories of it. So I drove over this skyway, and that's how I first came to Chicago, in a janky old car, with all my stuff in the back seat. And so within this community, these neighborhoods, you have the house where Michelle grew up. Our wedding reception was less than a mile from here. You can see the hospital where our daughters were born. Our first home, 10-minute walk from here. I taught law school right down the road. I announced my first campaign in politics up at the Ramada Inn on Lakeshore Drive, and announced my run for the U.S. Senate here. So as I've said before, and I'm sure I will say again, so much of what is precious to me is because of this community, these neighborhoods, the people who live here, who embraced me when they didn't really have to. I'm some funny kid from Hawaii driving in, not really knowing anything. And they took me under their wing, and they treated me as their own. and they gave me a home. So part of what this center is about, us wanting to make sure this is a living, breathing community center, as well as an exhibit of our administration, it's because I want to acknowledge that debt.
There was nothing like this center anywhere in this neighborhood when I was growing up. This is my neighborhood. I mean, every piece of me was built in this area. And as I got older and started having experiences and opportunities that a lot of kids like me didn't get, I went to a magnet school on the west side, so I started to be downtown more and to see this wealth of museums and these beautiful stores. And I grew up with kids who didn't even feel like those places were accessible to them, And when you start to leave your neighborhood and you realize what's not here, as I got older, you start to think, wow, why isn't our park as beautiful as Grant Park? Why do I have to leave my neighborhood to see a wonderful piece of art? Why doesn't it feel safe to walk through these paths? None of this was here. So for me, being one of those kids who didn't feel welcome in other places, the notion that the kids in the high school across the street, they were witness to this new fantastic building being built right across the street from the place where they get educated. I get mesmerized just looking out of the window and seeing the newly built parks where all these neighborhood kids are playing and running in green grass and standing in vistas and having access to world-class art by many people of color, that it's right in their backyard. This just didn't exist for me. So I get emotional just realizing what this will mean for kids, that this is their view when they walk to school. This is what they'll see when they get on the bus and go other places. They'll feel people from around the world wanting to come to their neighborhood and not them having to leave to experience something phenomenal. So for me, it is incredibly personal.
I do think that Michelle is surprised and proud that we pulled this off and got it done. She had a chance to go through the whole thing yesterday,
and for the first time.
And I could tell that it meant a lot to her.
He's completely uncomfortable with this thing being about him. I was like, he was just telling me, I think there should be a little less of me here. I was like, well, who should we be talking about? And he was like, Gandhi. And I was like, no, Gandhi will have his own museum. I think people coming here will want to hear about you. But
she's exaggerating.
But the point being is that I think my husband is always thinking about reflecting the light on other people. And there's something that I'm sure feels a bit odd for him, that, that the assignment of having a presidential center, which focuses on his presidency, it's too much light on him. And I know that that's how he's feeling. I know that he's proud of this accomplishment because it took a team of people. He made sure to make this about the community, to make this a place that our neighborhood could use and feel welcome. And so I hope you're feeling like you've accomplished that, even though our names are on the front door.
I do agree with what Michelle said. Only in this sense. I'm very proud of what we accomplished. I'm proud about what our administration accomplished. Obviously, we are at the center of a lot of this story, but there's a reason why we started, for example, the museum exhibits with the Declaration of Independence and with the history of the Civil Rights Movement, and abolition movement, and suffragist movement, and the union movement. Because part of what I'm hoping people get when they come here is a sense that we were just a very small chapter in this longer running journey to try to make America as perfect a union as we can make it, understanding that the world's never perfect. But we have made progress, and that's because of all these other people who, over generations, did extraordinarily hard challenging, sometimes dangerous, and sometimes frustrating work. And so what I meant when I said to Michelle that I do want to make sure that people see all the people whose shoulders we stand on, all the traditions that we draw from, because when you see everybody who's been involved in this project, then you realize, oh, this is a group project. It's not an individual project, which then means, oh, I, as a citizen, have a role to play in this project. It means when young kids come through here, they're not just looking at one person and saying, gosh, look what that person did. They're all like, oh, look what we did. And now that means I can be a part of it. There are a lot of cool nooks and crannies here. Outside of the Oval Office, the replica, there is an exhibit about the 10 letters a day that I used to get from people. That's as meaningful an exhibit for me as anything here, because it does remind me, partly because I think they didn't even imagine that the president would actually read their letter, how honest and open and heartfelt people would be about the struggles they had, the frustrations, the hopes, what was happening in their families, men and women in uniform writing about what it was like to come back here and trying to figure out how to process having lost some folks in their units. And so when I look at that, it takes me back to what was always the most powerful part of my presidency, which is just getting to know the American people, how much they inspired me and kind of kept me going a lot of times.
The floor that I love is the life in the White House. There's music and there's joy and there's laughter. And once you come out of some of the somberness of the many accomplishments and challenges, on the fifth floor, because that's where, the tissues come out. It's that floor that reminds us that the work that we're trying to do should be hard and challenging, but the only way we get through it is if we find the joy in it. And our White House was a joyful White House. It really was. Every day we had groups of kids there.
A lot of kids
dancing and playing and showing off their science projects and the smiles. At the time, the country was still coming out of a deep recession. The war was still going on. Sadly, we were going to Walter Reed and visiting too many wounded warriors, and I spent too wonderful time, but too much time with Gold Star families grieving their losses. So, it wasn't some, Eden time. These were tough times, but in the work, at least the East Wing, we wanted to provide that joy. And we thought that the balance of the house, that East and West Wing, needed to be there. We needed puppies and laughter and fruit and vegetables and jumping jacks and smiles just to get through those tough times. So that floor is an important one to me because it's a reminder of the power of positivity and joy and hope and music and laughter, and being together. I hope that floor reminds our visitors that we should not settle for trying to do this work, live this life on our own, that we have to have community, that lifts us out of our depression as much as some app on your phone. That's really the truth of us coming together, is that we have to actually be together in spaces where we're breathing and together and living together and doing activities together. Because I hope and pray that we're going to move more towards that. And I hope that the Presidential Center, at least for the south side of Chicago and those that come, will inspire people to come out again, to not be afraid to be in community with one another in
Get to know your
beautiful
neighbors.
spaces.
Talk
So
to people you might not otherwise meet.
Will some of those young people be able to play you in a game of pickup over there?
No. And now I will take folks on for a game of horse. We can have some shooting contests. I am not running up and down that court because I want to protect my knees and my Achilles. I don't want to be in a boot. So I'm in good shape if I'm just running north-south. You start getting me sideways, and I start worrying about something kind of going, But Michelle, this has been obviously she looks spectacular, but she is way ahead of me on the whole stretching and flexibility tip. And that is the next stage of
Is that where you're going?
That's where I'm going. I'm going to
He's
try to.
going towards stretching.
I've got to do a little more stretching and flexibility.
But luckily, at home court, in the gym, there are all these multi-purpose
Yeah,
rooms.
there are
where
all these
hopefully
rooms.
community people will do
Put
yoga.
our yoga mats down and all that.
Or ballet.
Namaste.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
We had a fun White House.
It was just there was a good spirit
and
there,
and an energy.
a joyful spirit of kind of going in there and doing battle. But every day, people were hanging in there and looking out for each other, and there was a level of integrity. People were there for the right reasons. So when I see some of the exhibits, I'm just reminded these are folks who typically gave up a lot of financial security and family time and other stuff just because they wanted to make the country better. There is a bond that comes from being in the foxhole with folks like that every day. That's really powerful and that I miss.
And it was our home. I mean, the truth is that for our girls, they've lived in the White House longer than they lived in any of the houses because they were so young. They were 7 and 10, So we had just moved to our home that we call home in on the south side here in Hyde Park. I think we had only lived there
A year and a half.
a year and a half. And then it's like, woo, our lives have changed. We live in the White House. So a lot of the memories of us raising our kids happen in the White House. 4th of July is Malia's birthday. And so that whole celebration in the backyard, which we usually devoted to military families, that was also her birthday party with fireworks and a yard full of people and a lot of friends and families coming through. So we have a lot of memories of the kids sneaking hors d'oeuvres before a state dinner or, the girls rolling their eyes for the turkey pardon because they were kind of forced to be. It's like, first when they were young, they loved it. And then, like all kids, it was just like, oh, Dad, do we have to do this again? And then we subbed out my nephews who were younger and appreciated it. So
I do remember that.
we watched our kids grow up. Prom happened there, graduation parties, and those are our memories in the White House. One of the reasons why we still live in D.C. Our primary residence is there is because that's where the kids' friends are. When kids come home from being away, they want to be with their friends. And while we have great community here, so there's a lot about Washington, D.C., about the White House that, is our life.
Obviously, there's a symbolism to the day I got elected. I hoped that if I did get elected, that would change how kids thought about themselves. Not just black kids, but all kids. I hoped suddenly girls started feeling like, okay, whatever limits people seem to have set, whatever the precedents are, I think I can do something. I wanted Asian American kids, Hispanic American kids, disabled kids to feel that same way, that we didn't have barriers. And I think that we did accomplish that. It was never realistic to think that because of one election, one president, that somehow 400 years of history suddenly goes away. It was never realistic to think that issues that are facing these neighborhoods in the South Side in terms of disinvestment and lack of economic opportunity and crumbling infrastructure, that all that was going to suddenly be solved. But I do think, as is true every time you see something you hadn't seen before, it moves the line of what kids imagine themselves being able to do. I think there are kids who, growing up under my presidency, said, yeah, of course you can have a black president. Why not? I'm confident that when we get a female president, which we will get sometime soon, in my lifetime, I expect, it won't be remarkable. And then they'll talk about female president just like they talk about the black president. They'll be more interested in like what's happening with the price of gas, and why haven't we fixed that, and why haven't we done that, and that's good. That's a good thing, right? It becomes normalized, and that's, I think, what we want.
I will say that when I go through the museum and see the reactions to his presidency, I'm also reminded that the reactions weren't just coming from the Black community. And I think that what we all need to be reminded of is the symbolism of his presidency. It wasn't just about race, it was also about the way you show up as a leader. It's not just the color of our leaders, but the character of our leaders, and how they show up in the world, and the responsibility that they take to use their platforms in a mature, wise way. I think that what Barack offered this country was a mature president, was a highly intelligent president, was a selfless president. And I think that the hope and the joy that people felt during that election and during our administration had as much to do with the character of this leader. I think we need to be reminded of that. And I think all of us, as we vote and we think about, how we want to engage in this democracy, that it isn't just an us or them. It's not about color or religion. It's about the core of the people who live in that house, because it's a powerful position. And I am so proud of how my husband showed up in that role, how he shows up every day. And I think he made this country proud in a very unique way. So hopefully we're reminded of that, not because of him, but who we want to see occupy that seat in the years to come. What kind of person we want to see in that role.
Thanks. Over the last 10 years, we have been working with young leaders through the foundation's programs, not just here in Chicago, not just here in the US, but around the world. And so we've got thousands of folks who are going through our leadership programs. Some of them are very young, through Michelle's primary focus, the Girls Opportunity Alliance, girls as young as 10 or 12, who are participating and gaining confidence and learning what it means to speak out and dream big. And through our My Brother's Keeper program, we've got young men of color who are working with us to make sure they understand their possibilities. But we're also working with young members of parliament and in Europe, and chiefs of staff of major nonprofits, and climate change activists, and folks who are working on reentry programs, and college students who plan public service careers. And so that has been, I think, the thing that's given me the most satisfaction over the last several years, is just seeing how our programs are developing this next generation of leaders to carry on the same fights, the same struggles, the same insistence that if we work together and we bridge our divisions, we can solve a lot of the issues that make life tougher on people than it should. And we can open up more possibilities and more opportunity for people. So I've enjoyed that. We've got all kinds of talent out there that are ready to remake the world. And they're also, to Michelle's point earlier, good people, who treat people with kindness and care and consideration. We are fed through the algorithms and just the nature of our information ecosystem. We're told a lot about what's wrong with people. And I spend a lot of time with a lot of different kinds of people, and especially young people. And they're solid. They have good instincts about what they want to see the country be, and what the kind of world they want to live in. And I think if we give them the room, if old folks get out of the way, if we are willing to step back and serve as their coach and have their backs and advise them, rather than feeling like we are the ones who have to stay on center stage all the time, I think we're going to be okay.
Is that how it is with your young people, with your daughters?
Oh yeah. I mean, let me tell you,
Don't get him started.
Malia and Sasha are all that. I can barely keep up with them at the dinner table now.
As my mom would say about us, I have to say this about Malia and Sasha, as wonderful as they are just, they just reflect back what their generation has to offer.
Yeah.
You know, there are millions of amazing
there are a
young
lot.
people
There are a
like
lot.
our girls,
Yeah.
and we see them every day. And I think this home that we call Hope is a reminder that however we feel in any given moment, we have a responsibility to retain that hope for the next generation that hasn't had an opportunity to have a say. You know? So you imagine you're about to inherit something that people are giving up on. You know, I don't want to do that to my kids or their kids. So we've got to get our acts together so that we hand to the next generation. And I'm not talking about our girls, I'm talking about the 3 and 4 year olds coming up. How they see the world, what that feels like. It can't be a hopeless place.
Can't be a cynical
It
place.
can't be a cynical place.
Can't be a.
Because they haven't even had a chance to formulate an opinion on who they are and who they want to be. We don't have the right to hand them something less than magnificent, right? And so we have to operate like that, even when we're feeling at our worst, right? We just have to show up for them.
Yeah.
And so that's what gives me hope. You know, whenever I get a little cynical, especially around here, you can look out the window and see kids sliding on a slide and running with such abandon, you know, that you think, get up, you know, get over yourself. Just roll your sleeves up, do the work for them.
Yeah.
So
That sums it up.